We've gone through the first 300 years of the Jewish church, or the church, in fact, the Christian church, which started off as a Jewish church, and then by about the turn of the first century, we begin to see the scales begin to change in terms of the number of members and where they come from. Most of the members then after that 150 period, about 150 AD, now begin to be more Gentiles than Jews. And that continues all the way through into the 4th century. And it's in the 4th century that everything changes. It's in the 4th century that Constantine becomes the emperor of Rome. And Constantine, whether he did become a Christian or didn't become a Christian, is a debate for historians. But what he does do is he brings Christianity out of the underground and makes it the state religion of Rome. Overnight, Christianity's status changes. It changes from being downtrodden, persecuted, suffering church into being the state church, into being the power authority of all the environment. And in fact, it's been in that situation really ever since, right through until about the middle of the 20th century. All that time, what we have, especially in Western Europe, is we have the concept of being Christian countries. So now you have Christian countries living in a Christian environment. And so therefore, if you're a member of that country, it's almost put upon you that you're a Christian. That has to then need a different place of worship. You no longer can worship in a place that focuses on community or that looks like a synagogue. In fact, what begins to happen now is you need a place where a king would be, where the ruler would actually rule. And God moves from being the God who carries the lambs on his shoulders and draws people into community. God becomes Zeus. God becomes the God who stands above all the others. The God who is all-powerful, the God who is omnipotent. That God needs a better building than a local synagogue. And so what we begin to see is a move away from the local meeting place to the temple, to a place where in fact we can come in and see the majesty and the mystery of God. So we move from community to mystery, the mystery of God. Also at this point we need to see that in the early 5th century, things begin to change radically for Europe. Instead of being controlled by this massive empire of Rome, the massive empire of Rome crumbles. It's destroyed by the barbarian Germanic tribes. Tribes like the Vandals and the Goths and the Franks. Those particular people come into the European countries, the countries like Italy and France and Spain, and take over those countries. They take over the framework of those countries. And the one thing that remains of the previous Roman Empire is the church. So while the people who have come in, these barbarians, are living in shacks and shanties out in the village, at the center is a stone building. Looked very much like the old temples, because some of them were the converted temples of Zeus or Neptune or one of the other particular concepts that were there in terms of the Jewish or Greek or the Roman or Greek Parthenon. But what we see here is that they meet in a stone building, possibly the only stone building in some of those particular villages. And what happens inside is all mystery. The barbarians can't speak the language that is used inside the church because of the language of the church is still the old Roman language, Latin, a language which the barbarians can't speak. And so what begins to happen inside the church building is there's a move away from the people coming to be in a community and a move that focuses instead on the front of the church, the place of mystery, the place where the mystery all happens. And so what we see, and when you go into those churches, and often they're called basilicas, basilica, which comes from the Greek word basileia, meaning ruler or chief. And so this is God now takes the position of the ruler. And the particular presence of God happens at the front of the church. Not where the people are, but rather at the front of the church where the mystery takes place. And that takes place on the altar. And so we see a move away again. It's a move away from the teaching of the prophets, a move away from the teaching of Scripture, because again, Scripture is only read in Latin, not in the vernacular of the tribes that will be coming. And so when they come to have their babies baptized, the babies are baptized using a Latin rite. When they come to see communion, the communion is done in Latin. In all of this, the barbarians are clueless. They have no idea what they're seeing. They have no idea what it means. All they know is that something magical, something mysterious is happening. And so you can see how worship changes. It changes from the focus on community to the focus on mystery. Now that's a great focus for a people who are illiterate, for a people who do not understand what is happening. We're not there to criticize what happened in that period. What we're there to understand is what happens to worship, is that worship changes. Worship evolves into another system, into another way which suits that particular time and that context. It's very important for us to hold on to that changes, for those movements of life within worship, because we need to see that that movement and evolution continues through to today, and that we need to realize that therefore we can't always worship in that same way when the context has changed. And so what we have in the midst of this process is this movement right up to the Reformation, where of course things get out of hand. The process gets out of hand in terms of the pageantry and the drama. And what begins to happen is that the pageantry and the drama begin to be more important than what they're meant to be focusing at, or at least helping people to focus on, which is on the person of God and on the person of Jesus Christ. That instead of focusing on them, the pageantry and the drama becomes an end in itself. Well, at that point, things need to change. And what changes it is the Reformation.